Welcome to the Crash the Pond podcast. It is
hmm
a December 6th edition, Monday night edition of the pod. It's been a fun week here of Ducks hockey. I feel like the Ducks now have an addiction to back and forth games with multiple lead changes and shootouts, overtimes, everything in between. And Jake, I think that we are all the better for it. This has been fun.
It's what is this? What is watching hockey and it being fun? I don't understand what this is. My brain can't compute it after the last 2 years. What is it to have I don't know what it feels like to have a player that's actually so exciting where I mean we'll get into it more, but I mean the Ducks obviously lost in a shootout to the Capitals tonight. But even when the Ducks were going through bad stretches, Trevor Zegras is just so good. And it's just so entertaining to watch, and it's just a treat.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what we're finding out, there's a couple of things that I want to just lead the show off with. Just a couple of statements, a couple of conclusions that I've come to over the last week. Conclusion one, I think that the Ducks are a good team at this point in time.
Correct.
I think they are a good team. I think that they are turning in performances that are objectively check out, and they're doing this without some of their best players. Like for example, tonight, the game that we will recap in all of its glory, the Ducks bowing out in a shootout against the Capitals. They played a pretty even 5-on-5 game without Adam Henrique and Ryan Getzlaf, two of their top six forwards. And if you look at their top six, need I remind you that one of those lines, at least to start the game, was Sam Steele, Vinny Lettieri, and Troy Terry. Now, on Lettieri ended up scoring, and it ended up being okay, but that first period was real rough, and on paper, it's just not pretty.
Yeah.
Oh, and also Buddy Robinson
And
making his
and also,
appearance.
if you're of the opinion like me that even though the lines were listed with that as the first line, the top six
Yeah.
was the Isaac Lundstrom line and the Trevor Zegras line. That still means that Derek Grant's in your top six. So
Yeah, exactly.
the,
Like there's no winning scenario here.
no, no,
Yeah, at least based on how the lines were constructed.
yeah,
So anyway, the point is they are doing this. They're playing this well of hockey without those bigger name players, and I think it's just you. What other conclusion is there? You can't say
yeah.
that they're not good
Well,
because they're clearly better than that.
they've
You could say maybe they're a bit more of a middling team,
mhm.
but I think they might be slightly above that. Like there's enough talent on this team to make me believe that.
Well, I think what you have to look at here, so for those that don't know, I mean, I feel like every week we kind of check in on this because it's fun to check and see. The Ducks currently sit at 14th in the league, and this does not include tonight's game at 50.54% expected goals for percent or 50.46 expected goals for percentage. So they've actually finally ticked their way above 50%, which
Yeah.
I don't know when the last time that would be the case. And so they finally gotten above 50%, which is really impressive, especially after the start to the season that they had. And so it just kind of goes to show where they've come from and how far they've come and what they're doing right now. And now, granted, tonight I think it was 45% expected goals for percentage. But I think the context of looking at the situation, the Capitals are a good team. They're a top 10 team in terms of controlling play. And the Ducks with their kind of, I mean, let's just kind of be honest about this, with two lines filled with AHLers pretty much, we're able to keep up with them and compete with them. And that just goes to show I think the growth in both the game from some of these players, along with, I think that we're going to have criticisms that we'll get into, but I think there is some growth from Dallas Eakins that we saw over this stretch. And I think that he does need to be commended for that because, I mean, we're some of the harshest critics that there are of him. And it's also important to commend him when you can. Also, by the way, Dan Elder, our good friend, is in the Twitch chat and says hi to you.
Hello, Dan. Conclusion number two, after conclusion number one, that the Ducks are good. Conclusion number two is that Trevor Zegras is already a star in the NHL.
He's
Agree or
all elite,
disagree?
baby.
All right, so moving on from that reference, the thing with Zegras is that it's beyond, because when we define, when we call them a star or a star in the making, maybe in a few weeks ago, a lot of that was just the flash that he brought, the marketing. I mean, really the marketing hit that he is for the league, and that was a part of it as well. But now you can remove that from the equation entirely, and just simply looking at the on ice product and what he's doing in all three zones. Might I add, he's not just an offensive guy; he's already I would say a bona fide first line center
Yeah.
in this league. So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it's one of those things where people are going to get on him, and I think the broadcast crew even did this about his game in terms of his defensive game or lacking or things like that. But I mean, he played. So first off, in at 5-on-5, he played like 20 minutes tonight. And I'm currently looking at Evolving Hockey, which is just only allows you even strength, so it includes 3-on-3, so that's going to skew it a little bit. But he, out of all the centers on the Ducks, let's see very quickly right here, the only center to allow less expected goals against was Sam Carrick, who played 8 minutes as compared to the 21.8 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of that goes to show, and it was 0.48 to 0.31. So that goes to show just how good Trevor Zegras has been, not only offensively, but defensively. He's been one of the best centers for the Ducks. I mean, it goes back to that kind of old adage that when we started getting advanced metrics and started looking at it more, and I think it was, what was it, Dave Tippett? Yeah. Had the quote, I believe it was about Keith Yandel, or who knows. I don't think it was ever confirmed who it was about. But I'll take the guy who is never defending in their zone and is known as kind of being a defensive liability over the guy who's known as being a defensive stalwart, and he's only known for being that because he's always stuck in his zone defending. And that's, I think, what kind of Zegras' way of defending is that he's able to poke the puck. He doesn't necessarily, he's not the biggest body, the strongest guy, anything like that, but he's crafty enough where he's able to get the puck off of guys, and that leads the transition into the offensive zone. And then once he's transitioning into offense, he never is defending as a result of that. And so it's one of those things where it's almost like you have to switch the way that you think about the game. You don't want to think about it as the guys who are quote unquote defensively solid, like a Derek Grant or someone like that. The reason why they get that reputation is they're always caught defending. They're always in the defensive zone. And so you would rather have a guy like Zegras who maybe has some flaws, sure, in the defensive zone. Maybe there are things that he needs to work on. But overall, when he's on the ice, the Ducks are getting significantly more chances than the other team, and that's what you want in order to win hockey games.
Yeah, and I think it bears mentioning, like right now, when Trevor Zegras is on the ice, the scales are tilted in the Ducks' favor.
Yeah.
If you look at the stats, I mean, it's kind of absurd. And you can go down the line because there's guys that have great numbers, and what they have in common is that they're playing with Trevor Zegras. I mean, Sonny Milano right now is almost at a 60% expected goals for percentage when he's on the ice. And so just so everyone understands, 50% break even, that's the bare minimum. That's what you're shooting for, is just for at least to play out as a tie when you go out there in terms of the shots for and against.
Mm-hmm.
And then 51% is good, 52% is better. But the more you go up, the closer you get to 55 and beyond, now you're starting to get into like rarefied air because there's only so many guys that can get up there. And so even though it might not seem like a lot, it's a big difference because every percentage that you're adding is a ton of shots less against you or more for, however the percentage breaks down. So Zegras is at 56.11. Like when he is out there, the Ducks are just controlling the game.
So real quick, I don't want to dive back into this too much, but I think it's something that's worth mentioning from a couple weeks back.
Jake is just out here settling scores this season.
100%. How bad in hindsight does the decision to have Nick Deslauriers play with Trevor Zegras look?
Well, yeah.
I mean, even in the moment, it was horrible, but now ever since, and part of it is obviously Rickard Rakell's just a really good player, but once you put a guy with some offensive talent online with Zegras, look at how they explode.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, Rickard Rakell's been great.
Yeah.
But I think, and he is a very good, I mean, I think he's definitely well above replacement level.
He's been very underrated the last couple of years because he hasn't necessarily been able to play with talent that are able to complement his game necessarily.
But like, what's the baseline? Like, what's the minimum amount of talent that you would need just to have this level of performance from a Zegras Milano duo?
I think that we've seen that Nick Deslauriers is not that. I mean, so here just kind of for everyone, Nick Deslauriers is actually the worst player on the Ducks in terms of expected goals for percentage at 5-on-5 at 41.35%, and this is with a sample size of minimum time on ice of 50 minutes. So that just goes to show that Zegras and Milano were saddled with essentially the worst 5-on-5 player on the team. And they were still able to find a way to produce goals, which is in some ways very impressive. But it just kind of goes to show of once you surround talent, once you surround essentially talented players with other talented players, they're able to really thrive and be able to score more. And I mean, it's kind of a shame that this wasn't done earlier, and then Zegras kind of had to find ways to produce with Deslauriers on his line. But now he's able to thrive and really prove a point to the rest of the NHL, basically, because I mean, what was it, 10 games ago maybe, when I feel like I saw conversations that basically the Calder was locked up for Lucas Raymond, right?
Right.
Am I going
Exactly.
crazy? It feels like it was 10 games ago people were saying that. And now don't look now. Trevor Zegras is 1 point back of Lucas Raymond.
Right. And I mean, and even just to get back a little bit to like the team scope, right now, if you just look at expected goals percentage and you look at Money Puck, that line, Rakell, Zegras, Milano, of forward lines that have played a minimum of 75 minutes at 5-on-5, they're fourth in the NHL right now. Like
That's
here are the
that's
here are the
insane.
here are the lines that they're behind. Zucker, Rodriguez, Kapanen, which somehow is crushing. Mangiapane, Backlund, Coleman, which we know Mangiapane is so good at 5-on-5, and Gensel, Crosby, Rodriguez. So two really good Pittsburgh lines, a team that's always great at 5-on-5, and then the Calgary line. And the Zegras line is actually ahead of lines like Lindholm, Gaudreau, Kachuk, Pavelski, Hintz, Robertson, Forsberg, Granlund, Duchesne. Like it's not just like they're good for the Ducks. They are great on a league-wide perspective. And
Yeah.
that is just insane to me.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this is the best line the Ducks have had since. I mean, I'd have to go back and look at how the numbers actually were for them, but in my head, it probably would be what, Getzlaf, Perry, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, you would have to go quite a ways back, I think, to have this level of dominance from a Ducks line.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that is, by the way, did you say Evan Rodriguez twice? Fired Carlisle was asking.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
He's somehow on two lines in this. So Evan Rodriguez, best at player in the AHL.
I guess so.
If you show up twice on this.
But I think the one thing that's interesting with this line is not only are they good, but they're entertaining. And I think from my perspective of just being a fan of the team and wanting to have enjoyable hockey, and just want to enjoy watching Ducks games again over the last or after the last couple of years, just being infuriating for so many various reasons. I can't remember the last time the Ducks had a line that was this entertaining. Like Ryan Getzlaf Perry was extremely, extremely good, but that line did cycle the puck. Like that was their game, essentially grind it out, wait for the other team to make a mistake, use your body in the corners, grind it out, cycle the puck, and that was their game, and it was effective. And I mean, obviously goals are exciting, but overall chance creation is what ends up being the most exciting. I think rush chances are the most exciting thing that you can have in the game. And I think that's what the Zegras line is good at. And I think obviously that's what Trevor Zegras is good at in general. And so when you mix in the fact that he's just so creative on the ice and is willing to try whatever he wants, it just creates an environment that just, I was thinking about this on my drive home because to be kind of completely open and honest with everyone, I was able to watch the first period, listen to the second period on the drive home, watch the third period. But I was thinking about this, kind of wasn't able to really watch, but heard kind of on the radio about kind of how good Zegras looked, all these different things. And I was wondering, how many new hockey fans is Trevor Zegras going to create?
Like in Anaheim?
Within the market, how many kids are going to watch Trevor Zegras? And now, granted, he's just starting his career, but what type of influence 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years down the line is a Trevor Zegras going to have on the local market in terms of creating new players, creating fans of the game, creating kids that want to go and play hockey? Because it's not only the fact that he's good and scores goals, but he's fun to watch and he's entertaining. And he looks like he's having fun out there. And I think that is something that draws kids into hockey and draws kids into the game.
Yeah, I mean, in the age of, TikTok and Instagram Reels, which are just short snippets, right? Zegras is the king of that because you can make a whole highlight reel of just, short clips of insane things that he's done in a game. So, yeah, I 100% agree with that. But circling back a little bit to just the on-ice component of this, I think one thing that's interesting with that line, and it kind of goes with what you were saying, is that the way that they play is fun, but it's also effective. And I was having a little back and forth with Jack Hahn on Twitter on Friday, who, if you haven't checked out, is
humble name drop.
Well, no, but he's really a good source because former AHL coach, and he's written some good books you should check out. But the point is, it's nice to have input from someone who can kind of bridge that gap between the eye test and the numbers. And what he was saying is that the Ducks, what they've done a really good job of this season is using the full width of the ice. Like they're not just kind of carry it in, get it back to the point, slam it on net. Like that line, particularly with Zegras, they're so good at putting defenders in really tough positions because they're making them defend from everywhere as opposed to kind of being predictable. And not only that, they're good at defending. Like it's not this whole narrative that, Zegras has all these things to work on, like, sure, maybe he can get stronger, maybe he can be a little more diligent at times defensively, but they're very efficient at getting that puck back and then turning the play the other way. So anyway, all this to say, the last 10 minutes or so here, the Ducks, part of their success right now is that they have an elite forward line that they're working with, and that is a luxury for a team and for a coaching staff.
Yeah, and I mean, even just running through the games from the past week, you've got so I believe in the Kings game was that line did not get on the scoreboard at all. I think that was maybe the only game that was the case of the past week. Because, against Vegas, Rakell scored with an assist from Milano and Zegras. And then I believe that, Zegras had another assist on Hampus Lindholm goal. And then Zegras and Milano had another assist on a Jamie Drysdale goal. And so that was, I believe, that was the 3-point game for Trevor Zegras. And then against the Flames, same type of thing. Sonny Milano with a goal, and Trevor Zegras with the assist. Josh Manson, this is the Washington game, with Zegras with 2 points in that game, in tonight's game. And then you also had against Calgary, you had Milano scoring with Zegras getting assists, and then Lettieri at the end of the game to tie it up with an assist from Zegras. So one of those things where, I mean, it's not all about production. There's a lot more to all of the 5-on-5 play, but you hope that production eventually can follow so that players can get rewarded for positive results, because at the end of the day, that's how players get paid. And so all of what we've kind of been gushing about with Trevor Zegras and what he does on the ice, all of his plays, everything like that in terms of a 5-on-5, it's now translating into the results of getting the goals for the team. And that's led the team to have some success here. And so it's so much fun to watch, and it's so entertaining.
Yeah, and I think that the big thing to note is that the Ducks still have some of the same deficiencies that they had in years past. Like their bottom six, particularly the fourth line, like there's still issues with this lineup. It's not all perfect, but the difference is when you have an elite line like the Zegras line, and when healthy, a really good line like the Getzlaf, Terry, Henrique line, that negates some of those weaknesses, and it kind of brushes them to the side, and that's the big difference for the Ducks right now.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, because I mean, I think the question I keep coming back to is, what's changed, right? What's changed for this team from the projection that you and I had, and the projection that a lot of people had, to be honest?
Yeah, are you going to have to eat crow if the Ducks make the playoffs?
Oh, I think they're making the playoffs at this point.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's almost it's not a guarantee, but it's very likely.
It's looking more and more likely every day, which honestly, I mean, I've settled into the opinion that they're not going to get a top pick even if they miss the playoffs. So it's like,
no, they would have to be horrible. The rest of the way.
Might as well have a fun run with it then. So I'm of the opinion, make it, and let's just have a fun little run. They're probably not going to make it far, but this is going to be a fun run and can build some confidence for some guys. And I think if you do it right, you can bring in guys at the trade deadline by moving out some guys that could help you also, and make it a really fun run that you can build off of for years to come. I mean, this could essentially be, I mean, not trying to be too much of this type of stuff, but some people look at like runs that I believe Chicago made prior to them winning a cup, and those types of things where Kane and Taves were able to kind of build off of that run and be able to use that to catapult them into their next runs. And so maybe that becomes this. I mean, this is getting too far ahead of ourselves a bit right now, but getting back to my point is, what's changed, right? What's the difference now between kind of where we were at preseason? What has caused this team to go from essentially a bottom tier 5-on-5 team to being a middle of the road team at 5-on-5 that is getting some good results and is trending also in the right direction? Because I think that's the biggest thing, is not only are they around 50%, they started out at like in the 30s, so they've been consistently trending up to be able to make up for that. And so I think one thing is, I think Lindholm and Drysdale as a pairing have been good. And I think at 5-on-5, that's really helpful. Cam Fowler's having an excellent season. And then I think the emergence of Getzlaf Terry as a tandem combo, to be able to put the puck in the net and kind of turn the 5-on-5 play into positive play into actual goals is one thing. And I think another thing is just Trevor Zegras getting more ice time and minutes, because I think maybe we were a little bit too dismissive of the numbers at the end of last season that Zegras had, and maybe should have looked a little bit more into that, of the impact of having Trevor Zegras in the lineup playing a big role at center would have had on this team. And so, I mean, I don't know if you can think of anything else, but those are kind of the big things to me. I think the power play is obviously going to be a part of it, but I think that part of that is a little bit of variance. But yeah, I think that those are kind of the big parts right now that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, I mean, to me, there's three core components
Mm-hmm.
that you can point to for the
Yep.
change. So one is talent. Like, there's just talent on this team that wasn't always there last year or the last couple of years, and that talent. So I'm thinking of like Zegras, Terry, even Milano, are just reaching ages where they're more in their prime or where they're starting to have that uptick production wise. So there's just more talent. I think that even though the roster is similar, it's these guys hitting that window where they're going to start producing. The second one is coaching. Yes, you heard it right. I am giving some credit to the coaching staff, and it's for some of the things you mentioned, but also look, the Ducks cleaned house outside of Dallas Aikens
Mm-hmm.
last season, and I think that people might not realize how much of a difference that makes because in a coaching staff, the assistant coaches are kind of like the tacticians, right? You have the head coach who can be the communicator, who enforces more of the overarching philosophies, but the assistant coaches are kind of like the worker bees. They're the ones that are drawing things up, that are really, sometimes leading the film sessions. And so I don't want to bag on them too much, but I really think that assistant coaches have not been a strength for Anaheim the last few
Yeah.
years. I think that you can point to a pretty clear correlation there, and it wasn't all that, but it didn't help. So I think having just qualified guys who bring a more modern approach, as I was referencing with Jack Hahn and what he's noticed with their tactics changing, I think that has clearly yielded results. The third pillar is something that you mentioned as well, which is just lineup optimization. Like, they're just playing the guys that should have been playing all along. Like Sonny Milano didn't make the team out of camp, which is just lunacy when you look back on it. But now he's playing, and as it turns out, when he gets a chance, he's very effective.
Yeah, he's very good.
Trevor Zegras not having his hand held for his deployment this year has made a big difference,
Well,
and it hasn't always been like that.
Yeah,
But
I was about to say.
But you're asking what's different from like years past.
Yep.
And I would say if you compare how the Ducks were using Zegras last year, I mean, for God's sake, wasn't even playing center when he first came up. And he was just being babysat essentially. So you put all of those things together, just getting the basics right, like playing the right players, better tactics, and better coaches. And this is what you get. You just get a more competent product. Now, they're not an elite team. No one's going to confuse them for that, but they're at least giving themselves a chance. I feel like half of coaching sometimes in all sports, but particularly in the NHL, is just have a coach who's not going to take stuff off the table, take options off the table.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they've done so far. And it is impressive. By the way, just want to give a quick shout out to Bruce Boudreau for getting hired on in Vancouver. And apparently, according to Twitter, has already dropped an F-bomb in a press conference.
Did he?
So,
I love it.
So
I mean, wasn't it last episode where we were just heaping on the praise on Bruce, basically?
Yeah, and now he's employed, and he is dropping F-bombs.
God,
so
I need to find. I'll find this after the game, I guess, or after the podcast. But I need to find that.
All is well in the world when we have Bruce Boudreau behind a bench and swearing.
Bruce
publicly.
Boudreau is just an absolute gem. To me, he's one of the best coaches in the league. Like,
yeah.
I think there's only one coach I would actually have above him.
Oh,
John Cooper.
Interesting. I was gonna pick. I made some comment about best coach in the league the other day in our Discord, and I've already forgotten who I picked. But it wasn't. Oh, Mike Sullivan. I think Mike
Sullivan could be up there. I would have him and Bruce in similar levels, but
I mean, the thing with Sullivan is just the fact that he constantly
true
outperforms his roster because they're always decimated by injuries. Anyway, so with all of that out of the way, kind of this big picture stuff, do you want to talk about maybe the game that happened tonight?
Yeah. And I think kind of we can start with the lineup, because I think to me that is the biggest. If you want to nitpick anything about this performance or this game, I think it's the lineup decisions that were made by Dallas Aikens, and not so much the guys playing, because it is what it is. There are guys hurt that kind of screws everything up. But I think there are optimal ways to take advantage of your lineup and suboptimal ways. And I think that even though the Ducks played a solid enough game, there were ways to better optimize the lineup.
Yes. So is this just one big shot at Sam Steele?
I mean, it's not necessarily a shot at Sam Steele. If you want to make it a shot at anyone, it's a shot at Derek Grant.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, so my interpretation of this lineup, going into tonight, you had Rakell, Zegras, Milano, Grant, Lundestrom, Silverberg, Letary, Steele, Terry, that's a mouthful, and Deloria, Carrick, Buddy Robinson.
Yeah, and I also think it's important to note that even though the Ducks roster, that they tweeted out listed that Steele line as the first line. Minutes-wise, ended up being the third line.
Yeah, and so, but in the first period, they kind of felt like the first line, though. And I feel like their ice time, their usage seemed to go down as the game went on. I don't have evidence to support this, but that was just my eye test. I'm sure that if you pull up the shift charts,
what do you think I'm looking at right now?
I know that's what you're looking up. But anyway, so the point is, yeah, these lines, I think the overarching philosophy for the coaching staff is let's try, especially on the road where you don't have last change and you can't control the matchups quite as much, is to not have a line that on paper is just a total black hole. And so that's where you get Terry on a line with Steele and Lettieri. That's where you get a line with Grant next to Lundestrom and Silverberg. I think that's where that comes from.
And I think there's a piece that you're also missing there. I think that it's also the fact that I think Dallas Eakins views the Isaac Lundestrom line as a quote-unquote shutdown line.
Oh, he 100% does. And he probably thinks Grant being on that line makes them a better shutdown line.
There you go. So that is, I think, also a part of it. The issue here is essentially you have two ways of thinking. If you're just looking at talent, it's whether you spread out the talent throughout your top 9 and you have Troy Terry as one of the leading scorers on the team, and you put him with other talent and hopefully he can raise their level and you keep the other lines the same. The other option that you have is to just essentially load up your top 6 and just play both of those lines the majority of the minutes throughout the night and just kind of play your third and your fourth line sparingly and put them out there for 10 minutes or so each and play the top 6 a larger amount of ice time. And the funny thing is, in tonight's game, that's actually what happened. The Zegras line ended up playing 20 minutes of ice time at 5-on-5. Lundestrom line around 16, 17 minutes or so at 5-on-5. The Steele line around 11 minutes, and the Carrick line around, I believe it was like 7 or 8 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually, like, the way of distributing ice time actually kind of really fell in line with the thought process of loading up your top 6. The issue here is, why is Troy Terry not on the line with Lundestrom and Silverberg, or switch it up and put Rakell there and put Terry with Zegras? Mm-hmm. It just feels like a waste, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. When you look at these lines, like I was saying, you have this idea of trying to spread the wealth or having a shutdown line. But at the end of the day, I think that the approach should just be get your best players together and live with the rest when it comes to your bottom 6.
Yeah. Like, I think that's just part of what happens with injuries.
It's easy for us to say because we're not the ones that have to watch like terrible shifts when guys are like, let's say you have a fourth line. I mean, how much worse could the fourth line be, though, is the question.
Well, I mean, the fourth line wouldn't really change. It would just, it would be Grant. What would it be? The third line would end up being Grant, Steele, Lettieri.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is a conversation that was popping off in our Discord during the first period. It's really funny because the first period you had everyone in the chat just kind of, had their pitchforks and knives out, and then by the second period, the parade was being planned, which is why I love our Discord so much. The passion,
our Discord's fantastic. It's always worth shouting out.
The passion for the team is truly unrivaled there. But there was a conversation about Sam Steele, and I'm not a big fan of spending a ton of time talking about marginal players, because I think at the end of the day, we want to focus on who's really driving the bus.
Yeah.
Like, we want to bring attention to that. And I guess this is a roundabout way of me saying that that's how I see Sam Steele at this point. Like, he's just, there's no more ink left to spill on this guy. Like, no. He is what he's going to be. And to be honest, I'm not even convinced that like what he is right now is a full-fledged NHLer. Like, he's going to be 24 this season. He's struggling to have an impact, even when he's on like the perfect line, even when he's with Henrique and Terry, which we saw, I think, against LA is what it was. Or
no,
I guess Vegas. Yeah. You didn't even see it then. And I think at this point, what else is there left to see? Like, what more do you need to see? The people that say, oh, give him time. You don't want to write people off. Maybe he needs a change of scenery. I think this is just who he is at this point.
Yeah, and I'm all for giving guys a look in a cushy situation and maybe see what you have. But I mean,
yeah, it's not a bad move from the Ducks perspective.
At the end of the day, though, from the global perspective on things, right? This is a guy that couldn't win a roster spot coming into the season and was beaten out by Bo Grew and Isaac Lindstrom for a bottom 6 center role.
Okay. Here's something I gotta throw in there though.
Okay.
Was he beaten out by Bogru?
Yeah.
Or was Bogru anointed to beat him out?
No, I think he was beaten out by Bogru. I think Bogru had a better preseason than him. I think Bogru
Okay.
Yeah. No, and so I think from that global perspective of it, of this is a guy that couldn't win a roster spot versus those guys, and now he's being thrown into this cushy spot. And while granted, yes, I'm all for giving guys a chance in a position to succeed, he wasn't able to. And I think at this point in time, where the position he's being put into and he's being thrown into has just way too high of expectations. And I think at this point in time, I don't know if the best way to put it is to cut bait, but I think the Ducks need to shift him to the wing, because I think by putting him at center and putting him in these spots, it's not doing him any favors. And I don't know if necessarily he's this all goes back to maybe it is time to cut bait.
Hold on.
All right.
I need to step in here.
Okay.
Play him on the wing. How did that go? Right?
True. No, that's fair. That's a fair point.
Because after he played on the wing, what did Dallas Eakins say? Oh, well, we've been playing him out of his natural position. Like, here's a thought. Maybe if he's not effective on the wing, not effective at center, not effective between two true top 6 players, maybe he's just, dare I say it, not effective? Is that plausible at this point?
One thing that I've kind of gone back and forth on with Steele in my head. No. You're 100% right. You're 100%
I want to hear this thought. I'm actually dying to hear this thought because I don't know where this is going to go.
He's the one player that never got sent down, that never got punished for poor play.
Felt consequences for poor play.
And so it almost feels like he was never able to work on his game in a way that was grossly needed. And I'm not one to necessarily worry too much about development of players necessarily. I think that you can learn on the fly in the NHL. But this feels like a situation that was a guy that was struggling in the NHL, and the coaching staff never fully understood or realized that, and almost, I guess this is the issue of not looking at the right parts of the game and commending players when they're actually playing poorly.
Well, this could also be a Murray thing. Like, we'll never know.
True.
Like, this could be a Murray thing.
But this is kind of the danger of commending players for things that aren't necessarily good habits and good things to keep doing, because they eventually end up kind of making that their game. And the thing with Sam Steele is that's not a positive impact on the game. And I think one of the things with Sam Steele that has long been something I've seen is that he always just looks like he's a half second behind when he has the puck on his stick. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like he can't see the play develop and see where it's going to go to be able to make the pass. And I just wonder if he's a guy that really could have used some time in the AHL where it's a little bit slower, because he played, I think, one season with the Goals when he was 20, and
did well.
and then has been up with the Ducks ever since. And when everyone was sent down, when Troy Terry was sent down, when all these guys were sent down, especially Terry, when Terry had good numbers still, Steele wasn't. And so that's just one thing I kind of puzzled about, I guess.
Well, I think that is a good point to bring it back to the fact that he was never sent down. And it sucks because I truly think, and like all guys who make the NHL have some degree of skill. And we know that Sam Steele at some point had some skill. And I understand why people talk about him so much, because he was a former first round pick. Because, I mean, hell, to this day, Jake, on the broadcast, they still bring up his junior stats. Like the game where he was centering Henrique and Terry, they brought up his stats from the WHL. I was screaming. Are we still talking about this? Like, this is still like, that's put that in the past, because it's clearly no longer relevant. But the point is that he does have some modicum of skill. Like, it was there at some point, and you've seen it in plays that he's had in, early in his career. He has some highlight reel plays, and then all of his goals started becoming not off of his own stick. But there was a time where you could see this, you could see the skill. And so that's maybe where you could make the argument that development is what has held him back. Yeah. That he wasn't allowed to flourish.
Yeah.
So, but I think someone made a good point. I think it was Heyo Deflo in our chat made a good point that he's also, I mean, he's got to be accountable for this at some point, right?
Yeah.
It's not just on the organization. Like, it's just never clicked for him. So anyway, I think moving forward, it almost doesn't matter what you do with him at this point. Like, well, I think what they might be trying to do is recuperate, like try to pump up his value a little bit, so that when everybody's healthy, you can then make that trade and hopefully get something. But like, statistically, he's been worse than Derek Grant this season. Like that's where we're at right now. worse than Derek Grant. And there's not even a little eye test, what about this argument that you can make for him anymore. Like, he's just one of the least effective players on this team, and it is time to maybe find a way to pump up his value and flip him for a pick, or like you suggested, just put him on waivers. Like you're almost better off just trying something else at this point.
I mean, his even strength offense in 20 in a so here, I'll put this on the screen so everyone can see it. But JFresh has it where you can see the changes in WAR from last season to this season in terms of combining the data. So when you factor in, I think he's played 18 games this season. Yes, his WAR percentage goes up, but that's mainly finishing driven, which is going to be shooting percentage, so not necessarily sustain in something that's repeatable success. But this craziest thing is his even strength offense has dropped 19% due to those 16 games. That is insane for it to go from 27th percentile to 8th percentile from 18 games.
Yeah, and even from a personal perspective, like for him, I would like for him to be in a situation where he can have that opportunity to work through some things and find his way back. Like, find his way back to the NHL, because I don't know if he can thrive on an NHL line right now.
Yeah.
It's funny. I think a team, like, I don't know how you would ever do this, but this is like the kind of project I could see a team like the Maple Leafs wanting to take on. Like, they traded for Alex Galchenyuk last year, tried to fix him in the AHL. Like, you need someone like that who's willing to take a chance on him if you're going to even go down the trade route.
Do you think that you could do Sam Steele plus something for Jake DeBrusk?
Well, that plus something is going to have to carry all of the weight. I mean, I know that people have brought up quite a bit that Boston is a destination for Sam Steele because they need forwards, but Boston needs good forwards. Like, they need guys who are actually going to help their depth issues, not just be another body.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know what case you can possibly make right now that Sam Steele is going to help them.
Yep. I mean, it's more so a reclamation project for a reclamation project.
But are they in a situation though where they can be taking that on? They're a team that's trying to win.
The biggest thing is, what's the value of Jake DeBrusk?
Well, that's something that I don't think we even have any clarity on as of right now.
No.
So
just something I figure I would throw out there. But yeah, no, I completely agree in terms of that. I think for the time being, with the injuries that the Ducks have, I think that you have to play him. It is what it is. There's not I think actually, weirdly, Sam Carrick's the third best center on the team right now.
Oh yeah, I mean, Sam Carrick's been good this year.
Yeah, he actually really has. And I think that if you're looking for a long-term kind of spot on that third line with Lundestrom and Silverberg, while everyone's kind of coming back and getting healthy, Sam Carrick's not a bad option there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We need to come up with some kind of hashtag for Sam Carrick that hopefully the Ducks Twitter account will pick up on, because they're in on every joke this year.
I know, the elite one-timer. I saw that today.
I mean, I hope they realize that they're subliminally making fun of their own broadcast.
They have to be. Wait, actually, nope. You know what we have to get them to do at some point?
What?
If he's ever called up, Cody Curran.
Oh, yes. Well, what's the hashtag there again?
Big booming shot.
Oh my God! Please, please, for the love of God.
Everyone, make sure if he's ever called up, make sure that the response to the Ducks Twitter account when they say it is
just tag Crash the Pond. Just keep tagging us.
Keep tagging us. To make sure to tag them and say the big booming shot has arrived.
I mean, isn't it funny though that all of these nicknames are actually somewhat sarcastic? Like Elite 1C,
they're 100%. All there.
I mean, Terry is very good is actually true.
Yeah.
But
Perry is still good was also true.
My favorite thing about the Terry is very good hashtag is that when it started, it wasn't that set in stone. Like you were the only one really going that hard at it. And so it was just kind of typical you having very strong opinions about things that, you were kind of on an island on.
And how many of those do I end up being correct on?
I don't know. We should one day go back and compile.
I'm probably maybe 50-50.
I don't know.
But I mean, anyway, my hit rate's not horrible on them.
But anyway, so now with the Elite 1T, I'm dying over here. This is just too good.
By the way, I meant to say this in our Discord. The funny thing is, the Ducks actually have a legitimate, not sarcastic elite player now.
Yeah, like actually, I mean, They have an elite line, an elite player. It's looking pretty good. I mean, what do you make? I mean, I swear we're going to get through this recap of this Washington game.
There's
But
no way we'll actually get through
actually,
it.
no, we can do that. I can tie this in.
All right,
perfectly.
go for it.
So Ducks come out of the first period down 1-0. They got, I would argue, I would contend, heavily outplayed. I mean, all the numbers point to that. Shot attempts 24-16 Capitals, expected goals 1.4 to 0.85. Just not a good period, but the Ducks had multiple opportunities to get on the board with one Sonny Milano who had an open net to shoot at, was perfectly set up by Zegras, and the puck just kind of skipped over his blade. Also was, again, perfectly set up in the slot by Zegras. Like, Milano could have had at least 2 goals after the first period. And after the Ducks give that one up, he gets on the board later in the second period. But what do you make of Sonny Milano's numbers this season? Because they're so overwhelmingly good. He's got 7 goals on the year now. He's at 19 points. Like, what do you make of this guy? Is it just a small sample? We need to see more, or is he actually this good? Because everything is pointing in the same direction.
Yeah,
that he just dominates play when he's out there.
I mean, here's the thing: we don't necessarily know how far back his concussion issues go, right? Or was that something that was specifically last season? That's what I'm trying to recall, and I actually can't remember off the top of my head. But I mean, this is a guy that always kind of had the pieces, and when he first got to Anaheim, I remember his on ice numbers were actually pretty good. And from the little, I mean, looking at 1920, so the little bit that he played that year, I mean, offensively, he was in the 70th-ish or 70th percentile of even strength offense, around maybe 40th percentile of even strength defense. I mean, that's all just skyrocketed because he didn't play enough last year, with that basically his entire sample size now is this year. But he's in the 81st percentile of even strength offense WAR, 71st percentile of even strength defense WAR. The crazy thing is he's not even that high in terms of finishing WAR. He's in 66th percentile, which I think just
you could kind of see that tonight. Like, he might not be an elite finisher.
Yeah,
but he's getting the at bats so often that he's going to produce.
Just a Rush guy says Milano's issues were his defense, and I think that that's probably a valid point. But I mean, his defense now, I mean, it's funny. That line is just kind of that line is the epitome of there is no center necessarily in the defensive zone. Like, you could have Zegras defending up high, you could have Zegras defending up down low, you could have Milano up high or Milano down low, or Rakell up high, Rakell down low. And it's kind of just, it's very much the epitome of F1, F2, F3 in terms of defending. And the old adage of the center has to be the defensively responsible one isn't necessarily applicable to that
that's
line.
That's just the modern NHL.
Yeah,
but it's far less pigeonholed than people realize.
But I think that line specifically, more so than others, is even more representative of that, because you'll find Rakell down low. And the funny thing is, Rakell's actually much better, I think, defensively than it always looks. And he was a center, and so that kind of plays into that. But I think Milano is a guy that's really thrived this year. And so I think it looks bad, first off, that he was put on waivers to start the year.
Well, again, though, like, his numbers right now are at an elite level. Like, it's not just like, oh, he's playing well, like, this is, good story, haha. This is on a different scale, and I'm just wondering, we need more sample, obviously, but if I were to ask you right now, like, will this continue? What would your answer be?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the answer has to be yes, right?
Yeah, I do. And I mean,
everything is there.
Well, and I think the crazy thing is Rickard Rakell, even strength offense, 86th percentile.
Yeah. I mean, he's playing very well, and he's producing. Picked up an assist tonight. Like, anyway, so in that period, so after that rough first period for the Ducks, that was kind of a sound the alarm bells a little bit period, because it felt like, okay, poor lineup construction, on the road, injured. They needed John Gibson to play very well in that first period just to keep it at 1-0. And then, just kind of seemingly out of nowhere, the second period was much more even. It was pretty much dead even when you look at all the different 5-on-5 numbers, like shot attempts, scoring chances, things like that. Now, there were 5 goals scored in that period. The Ducks scored 3 of them. And it's almost like they got back some of the puck luck they didn't have in the first period. I mean, Josh Manson, again, a missed Milano chance. Zegras, great zone entry, dices in, gets it across to Milano. He shoots it on net, and Samsonov just kind of leaves it there. Manson pokes it home. Manson's third goal of the season, which, by the way, Jake, I don't know if you've heard this. I don't know if you're in on this, but the Ducks defensemen are scoring more
That
this
was
year.
something I forgot to bring up about when we were asking about what's different. And the funny thing is, you and I actually were discussing that slightly this morning, and we were like, there has to be a way to look this up to verify if this is like actually just
Well, so just so people understand where we're coming from on this. So there has been this whole narrative that the Ducks defensemen are scoring more this year, and that in and of itself is evidence that they're playing this different way, that the D-men are pinching up more, that they're jumping up in the play. And the issue with that is that if you're using goal scoring by itself, goal scoring is very prone to variance within a small sample.
Think about the number of goals there are, especially when you're isolating it to specific players, specifically defensemen. We're talking 10 goals probably. I would say.
Yeah.
I don't have the number off the top of my head in terms of how many goals from the blue line, but it's probably in the 10 to 20 range. And so we're talking about 10 to 20 goals. So if one or two of those are variance driven, that's a huge skew in one direction or the other. And so that's why the way Felix and I try to look at it is this a sustainable stat? Is this something that's more so due to variance?
Well, also, are they even actually being more like? Is this even a thing?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so I hypothesized that we could probably just look at for example, their shot attempts or their expected goals, pulled up the numbers, and sure enough, like this is what kind of got me is that when you just get the median individual expected goal per 60. Sorry, folks, there's about to be some stats here.
This entire podcast is filled with
statistical
stats.
terms. Well, median is like another level, I think. But the reason we like median over average is that you get a better idea for what that middle of the distribution looks like, as opposed to it being jostled around by the tails each way. And so last year, if you just picked out any Ducks defenseman in the middle of that, the median individual, they were at 0.13 expected goals per 60. That's how much they were contributing at 5-on-5. So that's if you were to just pick any one of those, any defenseman from that middle. This year, they're at 0.28. Like that's more than double what they were contributing last year. And then for shot attempts, it goes from 8.7 to 10.4. So yes, it's not just that they're scoring more, which could just be dumb luck. Like they're actually there is a sea change there in how they're using their defensemen because they're just producing more offense, game in and game out.
Yep.
And so, I mean, you could probably do a whole article on that of just like what that actually looks like, but it's been something that you hear a lot and that you hear a lot like on the broadcast, but I guess like there is statistical backing for that. They are actually being more aggressive.
Yep.
So Josh Manson scoring, there you go. And like, by the way, Josh Manson scored that goal in the opponent's crease.
Yeah.
So if you want evidence of the Ducks D-men jumping up in the play, there you have it. And then in the period, I mean, Milano batting a puck out of the air, just a fantastic play. He's very good at that, by the way.
Yeah.
Just like knocking pucks down. And it was, again, very nice play between Zegras and Rakell. It was actually off of a Zegras scoring chance. And then the moment of the game, the one that we've been getting to enjoy more and more, the elite one-timer of Vinny Lettieri. So this was actually a really nice zone entry by Terry.
Yeah.
The other Terry, Troy Terry.
Yeah.
Just kind of classic Troy Terry, right? Just a little move to get that puck over to Fowler. And then Fowler, who has also been amazing this season, as we've talked about a lot on the show, brings it all the way down, rifles it across to Lettieri. And look, to Lettieri's credit, I know that we've made fun of the broadcast and Dallas Eakins for talking about how he's got this.
It's more so it's the low-hanging fruit.
I mean, they've literally said he's got a great one-timer. We've just never seen it.
Yeah.
When he gets on the puck, like and he gets a chance, he gets all of it. Like that was perfectly placed. Into
it comes
the top
off
of
his
the net.
stick quick.
Yeah, exactly. And then after that, I mean, with what was it? Yeah, 23 seconds left in the second period. Josh Manson. I put this out there on Twitter, but Josh Manson not make a catastrophic turnover challenge. Like, are we gonna go a game without a turnover from Josh Manson that doesn't result in a glorious chance for the other team? Because that's what happened on this play.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
As this podcast is just going all over the place, and that's how we typically do.
Yeah.
Are the Ducks going to be better off once they move Josh Manson?
In what sense? I'm just asking an empty question to give myself time to think about this. I think that the answer to that is likely yes, because I think what we've seen from Cam Fowler is that he's able to carry guys on his pairing. And so assuming that he can do that with another guy that they bring in or that they just move up, then the return that they will get from Manson if they were to trade him, I think that they are better off at that point, because what he does might not necessarily be this like irreplaceable thing.
Henry Thrun season to the NHL.
I mean, the Ducks have a few guys in the pipeline.
Thrun might actually be close to NHL ready. Honestly,
is he a righty or a lefty?
Righty. I'll check.
Well, let's see. I'm pulling up pictures. He is a lefty. Taking shambles.
Damn it.
Taking shambles. Yeah, but I mean, he might be. Who knows? So anyway, yeah, I think with Manson, it's so weird because his stats look good this season, and we've said this on the show before, but there are just some plays where you're just asking yourself, like, what did you see on this play, Josh? What exactly was the idea here? So anyway, after that, I mean, the Ducks really even third period. Again, this was a period though where you could kind of feel things slip away a little bit, especially at the end. And we were actually having a back and forth about this before we started recording. You pretty much had to cut me off and say we need to start recording.
Yep, that's what I'm here for.
The Ducks in a tie game, rolling out the fourth line with, what was it, less than a minute left?
Yeah.
Less than 2 minutes left?
30 seconds.
Yeah, your thoughts on that?
Not like, here's the funny thing is that Dallas
Henrique has good numbers, and Delorier is supposedly good defensively.
Yeah,
right?
It's just an odd strategy when Dallas Eakins is Mr. Play to the situation. Zegras can't be out there when they're trailing it or when they're leading in a game, and he's only going to play when they're behind in a game. And that's when he's going to get the most minutes. And so for a coach that's all about playing to the situation, I don't understand the logic. And I mean, this is the coach also that offensive zone draw, 30 seconds left, has continued to throw Isaac Lundestrom and Jakob Silverberg out. And yet Trevor Zegras comes off the ice and Carrick and Delorier go on the ice. And it's just like, what is going on here with 30 seconds left? And it almost cost the Ducks the game. I mean, Washington had a lot of glorious chances in that final 30, 45 seconds there. So almost cost them the game.
Yeah, just another normal one. And then afterwards, I have a slight comment to make here. I'm getting a little tired of 3-on-3 overtime. Like like when it's good, it's great. It's amazing. But most of the time it is not that. It is just kind of like, we're going to circle back, we're going to regroup, we're going to set up, we're going to try to get it done. If we don't smell any opportunity at the first appearance of pressure, circle back, regroup. And there is like a fun cat and mouse element to that, but it is not necessarily the most entertaining. Maybe part of it is that the Ducks insist on starting their overtimes with their checking tandem of Silverberg and Lundestrom and Lindholm, like the Swedish trio. I don't know what the goal is there, because in overtime you've already pocketed the first point. So why not just go for it and get the second one?
Yeah,
I don't know. I think maybe the idea. Okay, now I'm really trying to play Dallas Eakins here, but maybe the idea is, the other team's going to put out their top line. You're going to put out your checking line, try to survive those minutes, and then when they change, then you put out the Zegras line and try to capitalize. Like, but isn't that just 4D chessing your way out of the obvious, like the optimal solution?
It's 3-on-3. I can't really put that much thought into it. I mean, you're right.
It matters, though. It matters.
You're right. I mean, here's my thing, honestly. With 3-on-3, honestly, is I'm fine with it. I view 3-on-3 the same way I view a shootout. They're both skills competitions to me that don't. While 3-on-3 does have passing,
they're not in the playoffs.
Well, not only they're not in the playoffs, but it's not as if you ever see hockey that played like 3-on-3 hockey in the NHL. You never see it played like that. You never see it that kind of style. So it's very different than what actual 5-on-5. So just because a team is able to score goals at 3-on-3 doesn't necessarily translate to being a good team. And I think that's at the end of the day what you're trying to establish with overtime is you're trying to find a winner up between the two teams. And so, I mean, if you're purely looking at it from an entertainment perspective, it's great. And same thing with the shootout. And that's why I view them in the same breath. But I think from the trying to evaluate which team's better, which team deserves to win, 3-on-3 doesn't do it any better than the shootout does. They're both skills competitions. They're both the same exact thing. And so, I mean, that's why I view them in the both way. I mean, Christian J is saying, why do you guys hate fun? I don't hate it. I like it. I enjoy it. But I don't view it as an actual way to establish a winner. I think that winning a game in 3-on-3 is no different than winning a game in the shootout in terms of how it feels if you're looking at it from a fan's perspective. It's the same thing. And honestly, so this is what I was trying to get the data for. Before we went live, I was telling Felix I'm trying to find some place that I could find data to be able to compile some information. and wasn't ever able to find it. I was curious what the standings would look like right now with a 3-2-1 system.
Oh, okay.
Mainly because, like, here's the issue with 3-on-3 is that a win in 3-on-3 and a win in a shootout are worth the same amount as a regulation win. They're all worth 2 points. So why is that the case when we're establishing right now that it's not the same style of hockey? It's very different. And so it doesn't necessarily translate to what team's the better team. So why are we establishing that that's worth the same amount? So to me, going to a 3-2-1 system makes the most sense because then you are saying basically a 5-on-5 win, or not 5-on-5, a regulation time win is a better way, or is the most important way to decide a game, and that's worth the most value to all teams. And a shootout or overtime win, while yes, it's still a win and it's entertaining and all these different things, it is not worth as much as a regulation win.
Yeah, and I think that echoes the way the NHL has this set up because the playoffs don't have the shootout and they don't have 3-on-3. So clearly winning the game in regulation in the playoff style should be the most valuable of those three. But yeah, so I mean, anyway,
sorry, little side tangent. I was really hoping to get the data and I could not find it.
There are 3-on-3 games that I think are really, really entertaining, but there are also ones which I think tonight would fall into this category where they're just not that fun. And I mean, there's just something about watching Hampus Lindholm just always try to force a shot through that it just doesn't get me going. I'm sorry. Shootout though, the Ducks would end up losing. I was going to end up winning. End up losing. I mean, this was kind of a fun shootout though. I am a big fan of shootouts. I love shootouts.
Yeah, they're fun.
I don't care what people say. They're more fun than 3-on-3. If we just went straight to shootout as opposed to no 3-on-3, I would be fine with that.
That is a bold take.
I'd be fine with it. I mean, like you said, they're the same thing, right?
Yeah, no, I agree, but
so who gives a shit? More shootouts. Troy Terry had a nice goal. Rickard Rakell had a nice goal. Here's the question. Here's the big question arising from this shootout. What did Jakob Silverberg do to deserve this fate?
He hasn't taken a shootout attempt in a while.
Yeah, he's a 44% shooter on his career, which by the way is higher than Kevin Shattenkirk's 36%.
Shattenkirk's, by the way, 36% is actually not something to really scoff at. That's actually pretty good.
I know 36 is good, but the point is you have a guy who's even better.
Okay, so let's see. Here's the issue for Silverberg. He had the really good streak in 14-15 where he was 9-4, 9 made, 4 missed, and then followed up 15-16, 4 made, 3 missed. Here's the issue. 16-17, 1 made, 5 missed. 17-18, 0 made, 5 missed. 18-19, 0 made, 2 missed. And then 19-20, 2 made, 2 missed.
Yeah, so he's on a cold streak.
Yeah.
It's pretty clear. And I think maybe the problem with him is that goalies figured out his one move.
Yeah, I think that's probably it because he has that one move, and I think he started trying to get in the, pull to the backhand, and, it just wasn't working. He's that hot streak still happened though. And the way that these events happened, I don't know if I believe that all of a sudden he's a terrible shootout guy. The hot streak would still happen for a reason. So give him a try. But anyway, we're talking about something that doesn't totally matter. It's a shootout. Yeah. I mean, you could also argue put Rickard Rakell out there before Kevin Shattenkirk. I mean, I don't think Shattenkirk's a bad option, but I think if you're looking for a guy to kill off a game, I'd rather have the puck on Rickard Rakell's stick.
Yeah.
I think just from the logical perspective of it.
I think the big win for this Ducks team right now in the shootout is that I haven't seen any John Gibson flying poke check attempts yet for 2-packs.
You hate that so much.
Well, yeah, because it doesn't work. It's just, here you go, shooter. Here's all of the top of the net. Just have it. You know what? I'm going to take my chances here. It's just, I don't understand it. So
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I think overall, kind of to sum up the game, it was a game that in the first period looked like it could be a rough one.
Yes.
And now the Ducks were able to kind of fight their way back and get back in it and really put in a really solid performance that was not one that I was expecting. And
especially given the injuries. That's the big key here.
And so now up on the screen is actually the expected goal chart from Evolving Hockey. And you can kind of see the Ducks in the first period were pretty low. And then basically the goal that happened right at the start of the second period really caused a big jump. And then the Ducks kind of were able to build their way back up. They ended up still losing the battle on the whole 2.9 to 2.4. But to even be that close against a Capitals team that, like I said, is top 10 in the league in expected goals for percentage with this lineup, it was impressive.
Yeah, and I think that's the theme. Like, we haven't talked about the other games of this week, but they yielded some good numbers as well against the likes of the Flames, Vegas. Like, they're holding their own against teams that, particularly like with Calgary and even with Washington, are very good 5-on-5 teams, and Calgary being one of the very best. And that, again, is encouraging and not something that we've seen at all in the last few years. And so this is just, again, more evidence that things are trending in the right direction. And that, as I predicted, what was it now, a month ago, that the Ducks will make the playoffs? I mean, that is looking very likely at this point.
Yeah, it really is. Let's see. So, yeah, this past week, the Ducks played LA, and they won that game in the shootout, 62% expected goals for percentage. Then they had the game against Vegas that they ended up winning 61.5% expected goals for percentage. And then the game they lost in the shootout against Calgary, who's, like you said, one of the best in the league, 45% expected goals for percentage. So, I mean, here's the positive for the Ducks. Even though that was 45%, they did that without Adam Henrique for a large stretch of that game. They did that with no Getzlaf. And that's a team that would have caved them in. I mean, earlier on in the year, they played Calgary in Calgary, 35% expected goals for percentage.
You know what's funny? On Natural Stat Trick, the Ducks got 51.5% in that game against Calgary.
Which model do you trust more?
I don't know, but if you're a Ducks fan who just wants to be purely biased, go nuts. There you go.
Okay.
One model says that they dominated, or that they controlled play in that game.
Before we jump into questions, just really briefly a look forward at this week, because I feel like any place that talks about the Ducks, whether it's the radio broadcast, whether it's the TV broadcast, is talking about how unfair it is. The Ducks are playing 5 games in 7 days, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. Whatever that is. Every team goes through stretches. I mean, the Islanders played 13 games on the road to start the year. Every team goes through this type of stuff. But they play, this is a big road trip. They're at Buffalo tomorrow. Then they play at Columbus on Thursday. They play at Pittsburgh Saturday, at St. Louis Sunday. What is, now that they were able to get at least 1 point out of Washington, what is a good outcome for this Ducks team off of this road trip?
A good outcome in terms of wins and losses?
Yes.
Well, let's see. Is Buffalo still good? Is Buffalo still playing well?
I don't think so.
Yeah, so they're going to play Buffalo Tuesday night by the time you're listening to this. They then play Columbus on Thursday.
No, the Sabres are 26th in the league in expected goals for percentage.
I think you're going to correct me on the schedule. I'm like, damn, is there really am I really looking at the wrong schedule here? No, but I think they can conceivably win the next 2 against Buffalo and Columbus. And then after that, I think it gets a lot more challenging with Pittsburgh. And I don't even know what to make of the Blues this year. Like, are they good?
23rd.
Yeah, so like a good outcome probably is a split the rest of the way. But I think they can do better than that potentially.
Yeah, I mean, coming into this road trip, coming into tonight, I would have said if they could go 2-2-1 throughout this road trip, picking up wins in Buffalo and Columbus, or picking up a win in Buffalo and then a win either in Columbus or St. Louis, and then getting an overtime loss in the other one, and loss to the Capitals, loss to the Penguins. I think that's an overall good outcome for this team with the current set of rosters, current slate of injuries. I mean, the Ducks were able to get this shootout loss, to the Capitals. So if they could potentially make it a 3-1-1 road trip, I think that would be a huge win. I think that they need to, if you're looking at it from the perspective of make the playoffs, keep it going, that type of stuff, a win tomorrow would be huge. They have to beat Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, well, also Columbus. I mean, is Columbus a team that you should expect them to be?
Well, I more so the reason for Buffalo is that you have back-to-backs. If you're able to get 3 out of possible 4 points against Washington and Buffalo, that sets you up really nicely for the rest of the trip.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, so want to get in some questions? Anything else you want to add from the past week? Anything moving forward?
Well, I guess the big thing is just looking out for the Getzlaf situation, because he is described as week to week.
Yeah, we haven't really discussed that. He got hurt against the Kings, was put on IR, so the earliest that he could return, I believe, would be against Columbus if he was healthy enough to return them, but doesn't necessarily sound like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we shall see with that.
Yep, and Adam Henrique, I don't know if there's actually any information on how bad it's
just upper body.
Yeah. So who knows? We'll see. Hopefully it's not too long so that the lineup becomes more fun again. But let's get into some questions. So we're going to start with Discord. So one of the things actually that happened this past week is Jack Hughes got his extension. So we got a question from Gerg saying, is the Hughes extension a good measurement of what Zegras is going to get as an extension? Similar-ish players, and they have the same agent.
Yes. The answer is yes to that.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you think about maybe what Zegras doesn't have in terms of the draft pedigree, I think he makes up for in terms of his importance to the franchise.
Yeah,
and
so Jack Hughes, for those that would have missed it, he got, what was it, 8 times 8?
8 years, 8 million AAV. And a chunk of change, but something that could look like a good deal for the Devils, once he hits the stride.
It could look like a good deal, and here's the thing. I think the important thing for everyone to think about with this when we're discussing this deal is that there are going to be some people that say, well, Jack Hughes only has 55 points in the history or in his career. He doesn't have the production.
Well, clearly they're not paying him for that.
Yeah,
right?
56 points in his NHL career, 4 points in 5 games this year, 31 points last year. And so they're like, where's the production in the past to pay him? And I think the biggest thing here is to switch your mindset in the way that you think about this, because the NHL is so dead set on paying guys for past production that you completely miss on what you're actually paying for. When you give a guy a contract, you're paying him that amount for his performance over those seasons. And we constantly say it over, like, you look at Corey Perry and say he was overpaid in his last couple of years. Like, no shit. He got paid for his MVP because of the way that he played over his 5-year contract after his ELC. And so essentially what you're doing is you're paying your best players and you're optimizing your roster by giving the most money to the guys throughout their prime scoring years. And so by the time Jack Hughes' contract is up, he'll be right around kind of 30, something in that range. Yeah. And then you can figure out if you want to extend him, or you almost just cut bait if you need to, if his game is starting to decline, and you go to, because he's already gotten his big money contract, right? Because a lot of times the reason why guys want to get paid at 28, 29, 30 is they've been, what's the best way to put it? Thrown around by teams. Is that a good way to put it? And sure. Been nickel and dimed by the RFA system that they want to cash in and get the most money they can on their biggest deal. And so what you're seeing here is that instead of that, Jack Hughes might not actually take that, might not want a max deal because he's already had that. And maybe he's going to take a shorter term deal as a result of that. And that might be where the game goes. Once guys get 27, 28 years old, they're able to they start taking 2-3-year deals instead of getting 8-year deals. And that's where the market goes. And so I think if you're a Ducks fan, this is a deal I would be looking at, because if Trevor Zegras continues this pace,
yeah, 8 million AAV is phenomenal value if this is who he's going to be.
Yeah.
Or I should say, if this is the minimum of who he's going to be.
Yeah.
And I mean, you also got to consider like that the Devils are pretty data driven. I mean, they have Matt Cain working for them, who used to publish contract projections that I remember using on different podcasts. So if they're doing that, you can probably rest assured that they see the value from the team side as well.
Yeah, and I think they're looking at it from the way we're talking about it. I think the real question is that because this will be an RFA negotiation, is how do the Ducks view it? Because this is a negotiation, and the Ducks might have their standpoint of they don't want to pay or give term to a guy that doesn't have the pedigree that a guy does when he hits UFA status. That the Ducks just have never necessarily paid their RFAs coming off an ELC.
Well, there is one big difference now, Jake.
The market is very different, and offer sheets are now happening.
Sure, that those things are true, but one Bob Murray is no longer the general manager.
Fair point. So that all leads me to say I think that this is a starting point. I think that he could get 8 times 8. I think you could also see the Pettersson deal, the 3-year bridge, as being an option.
Well, I guess what would be better for the team? I think to me, what's better for the team is the 8x8
term,
right?
Term is better for the team.
Like the Pettersson deal is not going to end up being great for the Canucks because they're going to have to pay him again, and then they're going to get the term. And that term is going to extend further into when he's not as much in his prime.
Well, here's the issue with here's the actual issue with the Pettersson deal. He can just accept they're going to offer him a qualifying offer. Right? There's no way they don't. He can just accept the qualifying offer, and then he becomes a UFA at the end of it.
Yeah.
and just
So,
leave Vancouver for nothing. So there's the issue with giving guys a 3-year deal.
by the way, Jim Benning also out.
Yeah.
So his handiwork coming through there.
Yep. So that's why you want term. Because,
Yep.
yeah. And the Ducks were not exactly kind to Trevor Zegras last year with screwing around with his.
I mean, the franchise made it public that they were actually nickel and diming him.
Yeah.
Like this is, you can't even dispute it. They were making it known via their the broadcast, that they were manipulating the number of games he was playing so that they didn't have to pay him. They didn't have to pay him until further down the line, which, by the way, fully within the team's rights. Like, I am not at all knocking them for that. Like, if you are the team, you got to do what you can to put yourself in the best position. But if you're the player, you're not engendering any kind of sympathy.
That can come back to bite you when it comes to negotiations. You don't want to screw over your star.
Correct.
So, I mean, Christian J asked, "You think Zegras would get that though?" I feel like the Hughes contract is bad for Zegras because it would give him a ceiling. I mean, that's the negotiation aspect of it. If you're Zegras and you're producing like this, it's more beneficial to him to take the 3-year deal.
Yes, correct. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, I think it could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. I lean towards this being a good thing, but everybody's different. Like, what does that specific player see for themselves? How do they want to approach their contract negotiations? Like, it really does, part of it come down to the individual as well.
Yep.
And just how they want to go about it.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. And I mean, Zegras, I think it was, when was the interview about that? I forgot what podcast it was on, but Zegras was interviewing and mentioned something about that. He was asked about him and Drysdale playing the exact amount of games, same amount of games last year, and that makes them eligible for the Rook Calder this year. And basically, he was like, "Yeah, isn't it funny that him and I played the exact same amount of games?" And he was like, "Me and Drysdale definitely noticed that," or something like that. And he was like, "Yeah, it was some contract thing. I don't know."
Yeah,
he definitely knows and just didn't want to publicly complain about it.
I mean, it's a very interesting time for the Ducks because, like, Murray's gone, and I really believe that a lot of this stuff that we saw was Murray driven. I mean, at least I think so.
Yeah.
So we'll see now, like, how that will change things.
Yep,
might make things easier.
All right. Olaf is Berserker said, "With the results so far this season, should the team be employing more of a platoon with Gibson and Stolars?"
Yes, they always should be.
Yeah.
Gibson plays a lot. And, I mean, tomorrow, like, it seems like Stolars is basically only starting in back-to-backs right now.
Yeah. I mean,
but
Stolars has played 6 games this year.
Yeah, it feels like this week, though, we might see his usage go up. Just because, like, I mean, how many games are they going to make Gibson play this week?
Yep. And Will asked, this is all from Discord, by the way. So any patron, there's now the podcast questions channel. So use that if you want to throw questions in. Will the first line in shambles... or the first line, quote unquote, being in shambles, or with that being in shambles, do you have the Milano-Zegras-Rakell as the de facto first, or would you do that and then have Terry play with Lundestrom on the second?
Yeah, so I think his question is with the first line being in shambles. So with Getzlaf, Henrique, Terry gone. I mean, I think that's what's happening already. I mean, you saw the ice time breakdown tonight.
Well, but would you have Terry with Lundestrom?
Yes, I would, because I think that those 3 are the next 3 best forwards on this team, and the drop-off in talent is so immense after that I think you're better off just having a legit as you can second line and then just figuring it out with the rest and just trying to make it work.
Yep, agreed. All right, so now we're going to get into the question that I got from a DM from Christian W1707. I had thrown this out to DM me if you have questions because it's much easier for me to find on Twitter. But does this season show that the Ducks shouldn't trade Gibson because they they could be contending sooner than previously thought?
I think it's a little less urgent to trade a John Gibson than some of the pending UFAs, which I'm sure we'll have questions about, because, like, his deal, it probably gets easier to move as time goes on. Like, I feel like is his deal at a positive value or a negative value when you're trying to trade him?
Positive.
You think so?
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he's signed through, 2027 doesn't, I mean, if you're a team that doesn't give you any pause.
Oh, if I'm the team, yes, but knowing how NHL GMs are, they'll view it as cost certainty.
Okay, so let's just view it that way. Like, that's not necessarily going away. Like, he's signed to that deal, so I think that the urgency to move him is not really there For the rebuild, though, I mean, the Ducks are going to need good goaltending when they're good again, which they're good right now, but this isn't their final form. So I've never been one that's been super on the bus of trading Gibson. This season doesn't really change anything for me. Like, if there's a good deal to be made that can really help the roster, you still do it. Maybe you are more willing now to hold on to him because you want to give your team good goaltending when it's competing for a Stanley Cup. But I guess I could see it both ways would be my answer.
So my answer actually is no. This year actually has done the opposite.
Really?
That this has shown that the Ducks should be more open to trading Gibson because, while yes, he obviously has been good in moments throughout this year, the numbers actually don't bear out that he's been that great. And I think the important thing to note there is that, while yes, he's made some of these outstanding saves that maybe other goalies in the league cannot make, he's also allowed some goals that he shouldn't. And I think that's what evens itself out, and that's why his GSAX ends up around where it's at, and why he's essentially almost as straight zero. He's, I think, at 0.94. And so the big thing is that the Ducks have been doing all of this with not stellar goaltending, and that's, I think, the most impressive thing of the run. I mean, Gibson's at 915.
Well, so on the balance, he's not been bad. Like, he hasn't been an actual drag, but he's just been barely above break even.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
He hasn't been this big positive.
And so that's why in my head, I'm like, I'm viewing this and I'm viewing how they're playing. And if Gibson still has high trade value, then that makes it even more reason to trade him, because they're doing this with him not necessarily performing at an all-star level. And the narrative is going to be, oh, he's been great and everything like that, because that's just kind of where it's at. But he has a 915 save percentage. So just from that perspective, not even looking at advanced metrics, like, it's not like this stellar save percentage. Anthony Stolarz has a better save percentage than him, but sample size there.
And, and I feel like this hurts the argument that people were trying to make the last few years when I would say, oh, John Gibson's numbers are bad, is that, how could you possibly say that? Look at who he's playing behind. Corbinian Holzer. Look how bad the team is. And it's like, okay, well, this year, I mean, his expected save percentage, so in terms of like the environment he's in, is top 25. Like, he's in a better environment now than he's ever been. I mean, maybe this is the best environment he's been in as a full-time starter. And this has been the most lackluster he's been. And I'm not saying he's been bad, but like, he has definitely not been the John Gibson that we've seen.
And like Hardcore Lucha said, did you see the first period in this game in terms of how good Gibson was?
Actually, just to quickly correct myself before someone else says, the best environment he was in was 16-17.
Yeah. Anyway. I was going to jump in there, but,
Yes. Yeah. I saved myself.
Yeah, there you go. But the first period that from this game, like, yes, and that's my point here, is that Gibson's had strong saves and he has had strong performances and periods of that, but overall, on the whole, there are lulls in his performance, and I think that it comes out. And so just because a guy is making good and big saves doesn't necessarily reflect his entire play.
Well, that's the thing with Gibson and with goaltending in general, is that it is definitely perception versus reality. Mm-hmm. And when you see the big saves, when the team really needs them in the first period, you're thinking, wow, he's amazing. And in the moment he is, but then on the balance of the night, if he actually lets in a couple bad ones or just a couple not great ones that you'd like to see saved, then how much did those great saves matter in the end, right? It's kind of a wash.
Yeah.
And that's basically what he's been this season. He's been capable of the highest of highs and at times the lowest of lows. And that is, maybe you're right. Maybe this should embolden you to trade him because because the name brand is still there. But I think that even just having goaltending like this, like, I think this is as bad as he's going to be, if he's going to be bad at all. Having that kind of certainty in net is probably still a good thing for a team that's trying to be good.
Christian J, who I believe was the person who had the Twitter DM question, said, but Gibson does still have the ability to turn into that top 5 goalie at any season because goalies are voodoo. I'm like, yeah, that's a fair point. And if you want to make one for the playoffs,
trade him.
Yeah. And I think that's a valid point. I think that because goalies are voodoo, you also might be able to pluck someone out of nowhere and have them come in and have a good playoff run, but that's more so playing with chance.
You already have one of the guys who seems to have a pattern that you can kind of live with, and there is something to the devil,
mm-hmm.
And John Gibson can be amazing. So I would actually lean towards keeping him, but I can see the other side as well.
Completely fair. All right, so now we're going to get into questions from the Twitch chat. So I've seen some questions already, so we'll get to those. But if you have any other ones, throw them in the Twitch chat. But for those who are on YouTube, yes, go check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/CrashPond. Hit subscribe, hit like, hit that bell for that notification, or on your favorite podcast services. You can check us out though at twitch.tv/crashpond, where you can watch us live and enjoy any of the images that I put on the screen. You can watch us debate. You can watch Felix laugh or kind of look incredulous at various points of time. And you can also support the show. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free Twitch Prime gaming sub each and every month. You do have to hit that subscribe button after 30 days. And you can be just like Heyo D-Flow, who resubbed for 13 months. So thank you so much. So Pushhead2 has a legit question. What is the plan for replacement for Getzlaf next year if he hangs them up? I worry we're going to be stuck with the 2010-2011 type of roster all over again.
Okay, so I wasn't following the Ducks at that point in time, so the reference might be a little lost on me. Care to fill me in?
Yeah, I mean that was the ultimate like one-line team for the Ducks. Okay. 2010-2011. That was like pre Kyle Palmieri, Nick Bonino, all those guys starting to be able to come in and make the roster. I mean, they did have Saku Koivu.
So I guess I would say that is not going to be the case, for one, because I think you already know you've got Zegras Milano, and like assuming this continues, you've got one line you can bank on. And I think that you can bank on another line, because even though Troy Terry is not a center, as long as you just put him with NHL level talent, with all due respect to Sam Steele and Vinny Lettieri, I think that you can have a decent to good second line with him on there.
If Adam Henrique stays, you could realistically have a Comtois Henrique Terry line.
Yeah, exactly. Like Max Comtois is going to come back, and I think down the middle, and then you go further down the middle, like who would be the second line center next year? Let's just say that Getzlaf hangs them up.
I mean, it could be Mason McTavish.
Could be Mason McTavish. You've got Isaac Lundestrom, who, I mean, it seems like they want him as the third line center, as the shutdown guy. Maybe McTavish makes the jump. I don't think it's not as bad as that situation you're describing sounds like. Like they have guys who are going to be on the upswing, and look, at some point, it doesn't seem to be happening this year so far, but Bo Gru will take a step forward. Maybe he can kind of help fill out that depth. So it might not be, in terms of name brand value, it might not be as exciting, but I think they can still have a competent forward core for next year. And look, this is all, like, we still don't know what kind of trades are going to be made and what kind of signings they're going to make as well.
And also, I want to add in here, I think Getzlaf plays at least another year or two, especially if this team makes the playoffs.
Yeah. This is all the hypothetical he's coming back, which doesn't seem to be very likely. Although, like, you know, he got hurt. We don't know how that's going to affect him moving forward. Like the body's kind of a fickle thing at his age, but assuming he can keep this going, then yeah, I think he comes back next year.
Yeah. Our good buddy Dan Elder said, question for you, Felix. Will you be his winger on Wednesday?
No, because I'm not in town, but also usually I'm playing D anyway. So when I am playing, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But the answer is no, though.
Fatcherall asked, and these are all just out there questions, not even having to do with hockey, but you know, it is what it is. We're men of the people.
Yes.
What microphones do you guys use?
Oh, do I get to answer this, or do you want to take it?
You can.
I want to make sure I get the name right.
It's a HyperX Quadcast.
HyperX, yes, Gaming Quadcast S, the S version.
Yeah.
And I will give Jake credit. He was the first one between us two to get it. And I realized, I was getting frustrated with my Amazon Basics microphone. Whereas why don't we match? Why don't we have the same exact setup? It'll be more aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, and shout out to Winterborn from our Discord, who is over at HyperX and recommended it. And yeah,
I'm very happy. I'm very happy with it. So if you're a podcaster listening to this and you're on the market for a new mic, get this one.
Yep. Heyo D-Flow said, is there anything that can explain why Gibson has been far better shorthanded than at 5-on-5 this year? So this is something kind of Mike has been tracking and kind of messages me about every once in a while. But John Gibson's numbers are like, he's well above average on the penalty kill. And the interesting thing with Evolving Hockey's model is that they model different strength states separately. And so if you look at shorthanded, he's at 5.95 GSAX, whereas at even strength, he's at negative 4.55.
Yeah, that disparity is pretty wild to me.
Yeah.
But do I get to play this card right now? Do I get to play it?
What?
As a former goalie, as a former goalie, I will say this, just from the athlete's perspective. shorthanded is a completely different game as a goalie, and it's the same thing kind of for skaters because it's a much more defined environment, right? You're tracking for very specific things, and some guys like Gibson who are so explosive athletically may just do better in a scenario like that because it's less about, it's less about staying within the flow of the play within the 5-on-5 game and just more so being ready for that next chance. And so maybe that's why he's doing better. I also think it's just kind of variance. Like these things can happen over a small sample. I think that Gibson's style and the way he plays just lends itself better to trying to stop those more dangerous chances than maybe the ones that seem a little more harmless or the medium range shots that you see it more so at 5-on-5. So I think that's just a theory. We would have to dive way into it to know. We could maybe get some goalie people on the show to talk that through, but it is a great question. And honestly, I can only speculate as to what the answer is.
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, there's no real actual hard data that we have except for just the data showing that it's different. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. I think it might be a little bit sample size driven. We're talking 75 minutes.
Well, it's just so stark, right? Like,
yeah,
that's the thing.
But 75 minutes at shorthanded versus 982 at 5-on-5.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you're looking at global like GSAX, I think that it doesn't necessarily lend itself to have comparisons with those differences in time on ice. And so you're talking negative 0.66 differential Fenwick save percentage at even strength, whereas shorthanded plus 5.59. So, I mean, there's a pretty big difference there, but he's been close to average at 5-on-5 while above average at shorthanded situation. So, Lewis X209 said, question for Felix, will Jake eat crow? And he said, I don't know what this means, full disclosure.
I was actually going to say one more thing on the goaltending thing that just hit me. So I think, and maybe this isn't true anymore, but I think that when you're at 5-on-5 versus the penalty kill, I think that there's less adjusting of your depth in the net. So at 5-on-5, you're doing a lot more of coming out, coming back in, because there's just play coming in and leaving your zone. But at shorthanded, you're more set in your net, and you tend to be a little deeper because you're trying to adjust for bounces or deflections. And so for Gibson, maybe that just works better for him.
Yeah.
Okay. Will Jake eat crow? I mean, I think we're leaning that way. I think he will have to eat crow at some point.
What am I eating crow about?
I really want to tell you because it's not even an exciting answer. Like, it's just about one of these things that we nitpick and debate about. But at this point, I kind of want to just make this a bit of me never actually saying what it is and just keeping this going.
I don't like this.
Well, so, okay, here's I'll just tell you the origin.
Oh, thank you.
So tonight, you were very incredibly critical of the lineup and how the first period went and this and that.
Oh, okay, this is what I figured.
You were calling for Aiken's head in our Discord chat.
I was not. That was other people.
I think I said jokingly, "Is this Aiken's last game coaching the Ducks?"
I think it was Charbonneau who said yes.
Yeah. But this lineup, I mean, this very same lineup turned things around in the next 40 minutes and did not win the game, but almost did. So will you eat crow now on that critique?
No, because they still it still was a poor decision.
Shocker.
It was still a poor decision.
But I mean, it statistically worked out fine. I mean, your obvious counter, which you haven't used, is, well, it could have been better.
Yeah.
But yes, you will eat crow, I believe.
No, there's no need. No, stop. Ginger Wolf asks.
You're mad. You're actually a little
with the re-breakout season Kasha is having, and with new management who values analytics, are the Ducks in on getting him back if Toronto doesn't give him a qualifying offer? Asking for his friend. Ginger Wolf is one of the biggest Kasha fans there is.
I mean, I would love to see a Kasha return to the Ducks. Maybe that with Jeff Solomon being in that more analytics friendly role, maybe, but we don't even yet know who the Ducks next GM will be.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you want to talk about that for like 20 seconds? I mean, it's really not a whole lot, but the LeBrun article today.
The LeBrun article, which added nothing and just said the Ducks are compiling a name of GMs.
It added something, which we didn't know, which is that they haven't actually communicated with anyone yet, but they do have a list. That's it. That's the report.
Yeah. Let's see. So Pushhead, by the way, said in 2010-2011, that was when they had Koivu, Solani, Blake behind Perry, Getzlaf, Ryan. It's
I mean, that
actually not
doesn't sound
horrible.
that bad.
No,
Yeah,
it wasn't as
sounds,
horrible.
that sounds fine. I mean, older Saku.
I think the
Koivu, maybe.
defense wasn't as great. I think that was kind of the issue there. I also
Yeah.
think that was just Randy Carlisle being Randy Carlisle and then getting fired. And then Bruce Boudreau came in and turned the team around and had them actually playing a lot better.
Yep.
That team, I think, came back from like 16 or 17 points out of the playoffs to getting, when Bruce came in, to being like 2 points out at one point. Like, it's kind of insane. Well, it's also Bruce.
Yeah.
But Fat Geralt has said, who has higher trade value, Steele or Larson?
Oh my God.
Oh, Sam Steele, and it's easy.
I mean, it's got to be Steele, right?
It's easy.
Sorry, just hearing those two names triggers me a little bit, but yeah, it's got to be Steele.
Yeah,
he's in the NHL.
Lewis X209 said, question: you can only have 3 pizza toppings on a pizza for the rest of your life. What are they?
Oh, that's easy: pepperoni, green bell pepper, and mushroom. Is cheese a topping?
No, cheese is
assumed.
Yeah, cheese is assumed. I'm gonna just go bold and just straight up do jalapeno, ham, and pineapple.
Wow, that is not a good choice. Not a good choice.
Yeah,
sorry.
It's a great choice.
Pushing back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. What was this question? Oh, yeah. What?
Go ahead.
Should we probably talk about? Oh, sorry. This was talking about Christian J brings up with, if you look at Perot's hockey prospecting profile versus Rakell, then you feel a lot better about losing Rakell, because Jacob Perot is kind of set to fill that role.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of talk today. I'm surprised we didn't get a question about this, about, does that line, because people asked me this on Twitter, so I guess I'll just address it.
Yeah, me bringing up hockey prospecting in some ways was me setting you up for that.
Does it make it harder to trade Rakell? And I think, no, it doesn't, because at the end of the day, that contract has a chance to age very poorly or just be hard to move out of. Like, you look at the Henrique and Silverberg deals, and I think that what Zegras and Milano are showing is that on their, just that pairing should be good enough to where you can plug someone else's, or it could be a Jacob Perot, and be fine. Like, you still need to go out and get more pieces for this rebuild. Like, this year is great. This year shows you confidence in the young core, but you don't want to buy all the way in.
No,
like they are playing well, legitimately well, but I think you still got to have the long-term vision.
Do you need to just get your thoughts out and opinions out, though, on what you were tagged in a bunch today? Speaking of hockey prospecting,
why are you trying to ruin my evening here?
I'm just trying to set you up to allow you to vent to people, because you got tagged by a bunch of people. Trying to give you a platform.
Supposedly, if you were critical of Jamie Drysdale last year, like, you're an idiot. Like, that's what I'm hearing. So we have literally had Byron Bader on this show, so we know how his system works, how his model works.
We legitimately have asked some questions about the model.
We pay for his stats. Like, we are fans. We love what he does, and I think it is an incredibly valuable tool, which, especially in draft season, I lean heavily on to kind of guide who to look for. With all of that said, I think that specifically when guys get to the NHL, it still is helpful in terms of predicting how these guys are going to produce. But by the time they're in the NHL, we have so many more data points to evaluate guys off of in terms of on-ice impact, their defensive game, that just simply points do not capture.
Real quick, before you keep going, because you're on a good rant and you can keep going, I realized I never actually set up where this came from. So Byron Bader put out a tweet today saying that look at Jamie Drysdale with now, because Byron Bader starting to incorporate the current season data into his model, and Jamie Drysdale is now projecting out at 91st percentile. And did you know that he's 19? And so,
why are you doing this right now? Why are you doing this to me?
And so let's just say that Felix and I both got tagged by a lot of people, because both of us have been critical at times of Jamie Drysdale and his play at 5-on-5.
Well, so anyway, all this to say that model heavily relies on points. I think points and the NHL E and games played versus age, that's basically the only inputs, and it makes for a good model. Like, if you look historically at the success rate on Bader's numbers, they're good. But I do think, and this is something I've always said, it is slightly less useful for defensemen, because I don't really care quite as much about point production for defensemen. We've seen point producing defensemen maybe be not the most actually impactful at 5-on-5. And so for Jamie Drysdale last year, right, I simply pointed out the fact that his numbers were atrocious and that maybe that the Ducks were rushing him along a little bit, which of course led to an outpouring of pushback saying that, oh, he's 18, how dare you? You hate kids. You're rushing to judge him. And I just said, look, the numbers are just not great. Maybe they need to think about this a little more. And last year he played what? He played 24 games. So okay, fine, small sample. Say what you like. By the way, the model for Byron Bader liked him last year as well, which is something that maybe people aren't aware of. But like he still looked very good.
He produced well in the AHL.
Exactly, like he was already doing great there, and I was aware of that. That did not change my opinion. I still like what I said last year. People took that as me saying he's never going to be good. Never said that once. I just said early returns. This is what they are. Fast forward to this year. We're now 26 more games in. So now we're 50 games into his career. So I guess now because he's been better, which he has, that the small sample thing doesn't matter anymore, right? Oh, 24 games. That's too little. Don't want to judge him. Oh, but now that he's at 50 and he's playing well, look at you and how wrong you were, right? Like, do you see the flaws in the logic here that people are employing?
The one thing that I do want to point out here, because I think this is lost in a lot of this conversation, is just because you're critical of someone's play as of right now in terms of the way that he's playing now doesn't necessarily mean that he's still not going to project out to be a good player. And I think that's the thing that's being missed a lot in this conversation that you and I are tagged in.
I firmly stand by every single thing I said. Like, nothing that I said was inaccurate, and never said that he wasn't going to be good, which is what you're trying to say here.
Wait, what?
I know what you're trying to explain is that us saying he wasn't good.
Got it. I thought you
doesn't mean. Yeah.
I thought you were trying to say that So yeah, it doesn't.
No, yeah.
That's not what that means. And I think that's what Byron Bader's Mall is trying to show. It's not Byron Bader's Mall isn't meant to say what this player is right now. It's meant to say what will this player be when he enters his prime scoring years of 24 years old.
Here's the reality. Here's the reality.
Christian J says apology accepted from you.
I'm not apologizing for anything because there's nothing to apologize for. Here's the thing. Fans of teams are protective of their prospects. It's like a little family, right? And when someone says that your kid on the soccer team isn't as good as the other kid, then people don't like that. And last year, Jamie Drysdale had his great moments, memorable moments, but wasn't a positive for the Ducks. And this year, I have made sure to note that he has been much, much better. And I even said last year, and I said this during the offseason, and I know it's hard for people to do their homework, but I said that I still, like long term, that all of the tools are still there where you can see him become a good top 4 guy. I said maybe the ceiling might be a little lower, but the tools are all still there. So, if people want to have the gotchas, like at least do your homework. At least have basic reading comprehension. Like I think that is such a lost art on Twitter. Anyway, this is now just me pretty much venting, but that's what people sign up for here.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, Dan Elder says, I can't believe this had to happen on the last night of Hanukkah. Last night of Hanukkah was last night, Dan.
Wow.
Good friend over there. Now I actually am double checking this because now I don't want to be gotcha'd.
I mean, the gotchas, what's the other one?
Wait, no, tonight is, somehow I skipped tonight. What? I'm so confused.
What night of Hanukkah?
Which night did I skip?
Yeah, dude,
I lost track of nights.
You tried to dunk on our good friend Dan, only to out yourself as not aware that this is the last night of Hanukkah.
Now I'm like trying to go through my head. Which night did I skip?
Did you miss a candle?
No, because I didn't. I forgot. No, I lit 8 yesterday. Maybe I lost track.
Okay, I also want to point out, like
I just got got.
Now people. So to our Twitch chat. I am not like all this complaining I'm doing is not directed at you guys. You guys are like, you bring me joy in all of this, right? You are the fun-loving members of our community. It's more so the reply guys that I have on Twitter that I'm referring to.
How? I'm so lost.
Jake is just in shambles here. I think your faith now has to be fully in question.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No. This is not.
You can't slither your way out of this.
The first night was the 28th. Second night was the 29th. Third night was the 30th. Fourth night was the 1st. Fifth night the 2nd. Sixth night the 3rd. Seventh night the 4th. Eighth night the 5th. There are 8 nights of Hanukkah.
I don't know, man. I mean, Google just completely disagrees with you.
Yeah, there's no way.
Okay, so what are the 8 days of Hanukkah 2021?
No, there's no 8. It's 8 nights. 7 days, 8 nights. Now,
Yeah.
Gabe Green saying Jake the fake.
I don't know, dude. I'm not gonna claim to know anything about this topic, but it sounds like you're way off here.
No,
Like
okay.
it
No, no, no,
literally
no, no,
says last night,
no, no,
December
no, no,
6th.
no, no, no. It says it lasts until sundown on Monday, December 6th. So
Wait, I mean,
last
you're
night was the
still
last
wrong.
night. No, I wasn't. Last night was the last night of Hanukkah. Hanukkah ended at sundown today.
Yeah, but that's still like it was like sundown is dark, right? Like
but Hanukkah's all about the nights. It's 8 nights.
okay. Well, I can't say that I care very much about this topic. So, with all due respect, all due respect, all
All right.
inclusive.
I at least feel better now that I didn't skip a night of candles.
Yeah, you were in a bad way there.
I feel at least better about myself.
You were scrambling there for a second.
I feel much better about myself at least now.
I was worried about you.
Yeah. Oh, let's end with this. Ken Paffu says, according to Adam Sandler, it's 8 crazy nights.
So well, okay, there you go.
Did you want to add anything?
I just don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to, slip over anything. So I'm gonna leave this there. I'm doing this for you, Jake. I'm doing this for you.
All right.
Out of respect and deference to you.
I'll take it.
And the great people of Hanukkah.
How is this where we ended up? Anything else you want to add? Anything you want to say about Halo?
So, you actually beat me to it. I was gonna say one thing. I was listening to a podcast last night, and they did a recommendations portion, which we used to do. I think we used to do way back in the day. I don't know.
What did we used to do?
Recommendations. Like we would recommend something at the end of the show.
We did?
I know we've done it before.
Okay.
Like if you search the annals, is that how you say annals?
Be careful there.
Don't want to say that wrong. If you search the annals of our show, I think you will find shows where we did the recommendations. So, Jake, what are you recommending right now? Could be a show, could be a video game, could be a food item. Give me something.
All right. Well, with the fact that Hanukkah just ended, I'm gonna recommend
Judaism.
I'm gonna recommend
Hanukkah. Like, where's this going?
I'm gonna recommend latkes.
Oh, okay. So here's my question about latkes. Do you still eat them like outside of the holiday, or is it a holiday specific thing?
If I'm at a Jewish deli, I might get them, but I don't make them unless it's Hanukkah.
Okay, got it.
They're very.
So you're recommending something you eat 7 nights of the year?
One night.
Wow. So there you go.
But they're delicious.
Why don't you make them more often?
Because you love them so much. It's smelly. Oh God, our chat is all over you right now.
Well, they're spelling it wrong. I think there's 2 N's in annals. Okay, well, my recommendation. This is really difficult. Would it be just a bad recommendation if I recommend Halo Infinite?
No,
because we've been playing so much.
I left that one for you.
Okay, well, here's one thing I do want to recommend. So, great friend of the show, that guy Bobski. I watched his Twitch stream last night, so he has a Twitch stream as well. And I gotta say, watching him do Flight Simulator and crash his plane was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Like,
was it better than the clip that lives in infamy of you saying I'm coming in hot in Warzone, and then you just not pulling shoot, and my POV of it's fantastic.
I was laughing very hard, and I don't really laugh like that very often, so it was very good. So I'll just recommend that guy Bobski's Twitch stream. There you go.
Oh wait, I have another recommendation.
Okay.
The Ordinaire in Long Beach does a Christmas setup for their dinner. It's very hard to get reservations. Went there last night. It was amazing. It was so cool. The entire place is decked out. The drinks are all like Christmas named. They had like a gingerbread old fashioned. There was a tequila drink that my wife got in. It was a T-Rex mug with Santa on it.
Wow.
It was amazing. It was so cool. So there we go. Recommendation there. Oh, Dan Elder saying bars reservation fee free. So anyone in Long Beach, go to the Ordinaire during the holidays.
I have a recommendation. I'm going to recommend a city. So over the weekend, I visited Pacifica, California, which is in NorCal. It's a beach town. Went to the beach, and it was quite nice. It's the beaches in NorCal are completely different from SoCal, like way more naturey, big hills. So tried that out. Swam in the water. It was only surfers in wetsuits, Jake, and I still went and swam. No wetsuit.
Yeah, you're
The
crazy.
water,
You're a crazy
the
person.
water was 52 degrees, 54 degrees, and like I went underneath into the water, and I I thought I was gonna lose. Like I was losing feeling rapidly. But it was great. I came out of it feeling like $1,000,000. So there you go. Check out Pacifica. Cold water. We love cold water on the show.
We do?
I guess this is a good question for you. This is my question to the podcast. Are you a water temp guy, or sorry, a room temp water guy, or are you
Cold.
ice in the water?
Ice in the water. Room temp,
Okay.
not as good.
Yeah, I think that's the correct call.
And now Salem's licking herself behind me.
Oh wait, so I think Dan Eller's actually been there. There is a Taco Bell there, which I drove by, and I didn't see the grill barbecue. Stopped at an L&L Hawaiian barbecue. So
L&L
This is-
Hawaiian Barbecue Elite.
it's
This
very
is
good.
Where is this podcast at right now?
I feel like we're recording a Patreon.
Yeah,
That's
I
what
think
this
it's
feels
time
like.
for us. Yeah, so if you enjoyed the last like 5-10 minutes, these are our Patreon episodes.
I almost accidentally clicked out of our tab for our StreamYard.
Well, that
which
would have been fun
very
for me to
bad.
try to land this ship.
Okay, should we just get the hell out of here?
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you everybody for listening. If you enjoyed what we did today, if you enjoy our show, here are a few ways that you can support us. So the number one way is to check out our Patreon, patreon.com/crashthepond. For $1 a month, you get access to our patrons only Discord chat, which is so much fun. Like we talked about, I feel like we brought it up multiple times in this show. One of the best Ducks communities you'll find anywhere. Just really a fun time. No one is trying to bring anyone down. It's just a really fun, supportive community. That's for $1 a month. For $5 a month, you get access to 2 bonus episodes. So you get even more content than what we are providing you a month. And we'll go more in depth on league-wide topics. We will go and go even deeper on different Ducks topics. We'll do like player grades on those different shows. So those are really good. You also get a little more banter, a little more unfiltered. You get some more juicy stuff than maybe we reveal on the regular show. So that's for $5 a month. And then for $15 a month, you can also get access to everything I just mentioned, but also 2 watch-alongs a month. So you can watch Ducks games with us, join a stream where we have a private YouTube chat, and those are a lot of fun. We give you stats, more of a breakdown as the game is happening, as opposed to what you might be used to with the regular broadcast. And now we have a Salem the Black Cat appearance on Jake's screen. So very happy about that. She's actually, wow, I'm surprised. She's not just jumping out of your arms right away.
I know.
This is kind of shocking.
She just woke up from a nap.
I feel like you two's relationship must be improving if that's the case.
Oh, stop.
Hey,
Salem loves me.
It could go from good to great, Jake. You don't assume the worst with what I'm saying.
And there she went. There she goes to lick the blinds.
And so if you don't want to pledge any money a month, that's totally understandable. There's still ways to support us that are really easy and free to you. Search Crash the Pond on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a rating and a review. We will read it on the show. If nothing else, those just really they make us feel like $1,000,000. Hearing you guys' thoughts, hearing what you have to say about the show, we always get a great kick out of it. And like I said, we will read it. That's on Apple Podcasts. You can also find us on Spotify. And by the way, if we made it into your if you're still listening, by the way, congratulations. But if we made it into your Spotify Wrapped, if we made it into your top 5 podcasts, hell, if we were your top podcast, please let us know. I'm curious.
We've gotten a couple.
Yeah, we've gotten a couple, and like, it is a little bit of an ego stroke. I'm not gonna lie, but it's also just cool to see like who's out there listening. Yeah. So if you've made it this far, please let us know if we made it to your Spotify Wrapped. Okay, outside of that, I mean, you can find us on all your podcast services. Check us out on YouTube. See the video of the show with the charts, with the cats, with Jake's background, with everything, really. With our cool mics. That's at youtube.com/crashthepond. Make sure to subscribe there and turn on the notifications. Outside of that, check out our website. So, I mean, it's getting to be that time. Holidays, you probably want to buy your loved ones, your friends gifts. So go to crashthepond.com/shop and buy our cool hoodies and or t-shirts. with our beautiful Crash the Pond logo on them. I think that it's a perfect gift for the diehard Ducks fan in your life.
Oh, by the way, I just realized this guy's in the chat, so I want to give him a shout out. Gabe Greenlee, he deserves a shout out for constantly replying to the Ducks whenever they use hashtag Troy Terry's very good, saying to give the man his credit. So just want to give him a shout out.
Yeah, some good stuff going on in the chat right now. And then outside of that, just make sure to follow us on Twitter at Crash the Pond. Jake is on there at Reindeer Games 91. I'm on there at Felix_Sicard, and I hope that is all of it. I think we covered everything here.
Yep, that's it.
I don't know how this. I don't know how this made.
You could have ended it right there. Now you just continued it.
I don't know how this show made it to 2 hours. I apologize. I also don't really apologize because I think people enjoy it. So anyway, with all that being said, have a great week, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Happy 9th night of Hanukkah.